just want to go a bit deeper into AAL as one example, ambient assisted living. There's really lots of fantasy, and I must say that the markets in Europe are very different. For example, if you take the penetration of the panic buttons, you know, like for elderly people who are at home, who can call an emergency service by a panic button. We have very high distribution, for example, in Scandinavia or in England. In Germany, almost no one has it. Yeah? So really, the markets can be very different here, and because consumers or societies have different interests. And there are lots of ideas of health and home care, of connecting the home, of monitoring like values, you know, when heart failure patients and so on, of securing, of getting security, of having like assistance delivery, social contacts, etc. And I think this will be a huge market as well in the following years when customers get used to it. So far, we have the disparity that elderly people do not use the internet so much. May be different here in Estonia, but like in Germany, it's like that. But in a few years, this will not be so anymore. And then we have full use of all these wonderful stuff. Okay, this was some ideas on the market, some trends. I'm sure you all heard about it already, and you're familiar with it. And the interesting thing are the numbers. How big is the market, and which developments do we see here, and where is it? Which are the sub-markets? Here as well I want to show some figures about Germany, because we have the best database on that, and we made a lot of research. And in Germany you can say that the market is growing by 5 to 6% a year. Only secondary healthcare market, private consumption, started with like 50 billion euros 8 years ago. Then 60 billions in 2007, and now in 2010 we estimate some 70 billions. We had a slowdown here, of course, due to the financial crisis as well. Nevertheless, we did some market research, and we asked people in 2009, did you reduce your consumption on health? And almost no one did it. And like all the people like in this area, they did not reduce consumption. They said they just let it the same. And which are the main areas of consumption here? Because 70 billion euros is a lot. It's all kinds of fitness and wellness. It's of course health tourism, it's functional food, organic food, it's prevention and health protection. Then there are privately financed services of doctors, of hospitals and so on. Because, just a side remark, the secondary healthcare market is not only something for private companies and for consumer goods companies and for, let's say, tourism companies. Of course, the doctors and hospitals are going into it as well, and they say, okay, here's an additional revenue stream which I can have to better balance my income sheet. There are a lot of offerings, like of extra services, extra diagnostics and so on, and privately financed therapies. And I always say, as a rule of thumb, you could say that in Germany, every person, every adult spends 900 euros a year on healthcare, personally, on health, besides the contribution to health insurance. So that's really a lot, and it's a big market, and we can say that more or less it's the same all over Europe. You can see some countries here, we have Sweden as well, we have France, Italy, and if you take the proportion of the population, you can see it's like more or less the same everywhere. Of course, the systems are not so comparable. For example, in Switzerland, you have a higher proportion of private spendings and so on, but it exists really everywhere. And not only in Western countries, like this trend towards healthy food and so on, you see it in developing countries as well. And I just picked out one number here, because in this 64 million you have, of course, all the segments. And because you're interested in the health tourism, I just showed the numbers of health tourism as well. For example, for Germany, you would have spendings of 4 billion euros for health tourism alone. And if you sum it up for Western Europe, you would have some 16-17 billion euros spending in health tourism altogether. Russia alone, there are different estimates because numbers for Russia are always a bit difficult. Russians alone will spend 2 to 4 billions, so that's a huge market as well. I want to say the secondary health market has really multiple dimensions. It's more than wellness. It's the whole big field of prevention, of course. It's the whole field of technology, which will be a field of private consumption as well. It's the topic that health comes into all areas of life. It's the topic of multi-morbidity, because people will do something about this. And we shouldn't forget about corporate health, which is a big issue now. in Western Europe, and big corporates are really thinking a lot about it. How can we improve the health of our employees? So it's a huge market with many dimensions. And now we'll have a closer look at the Nordic states and Russia, and this will be presented by my colleague Hans-Nick Tellius.